Oh, hello, kitties. Looking to see a review from that little fatty Puttyman? Well, be prepared, because you won't know when something is going to creep up your back and take hold. But no worries, I have a little red balloon just for you that comes courtesy of Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Now let's join Putty, because we all float down here. The year was 1987. I was 7 years old. Me and my mother were staying at my grandma's house for reasons I honestly can't remember. I think it was because of the abuse of my stepfather, things of that nature. But anyway, my Aunt Barbara loved to make me do things that may cause fear or fright, and I never understood why, but because of this, I would follow her everywhere. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't love scary movies to this day or love riding roller coasters. Now, during 1 week, I think, honestly the time frame I can't remember, but my Aunt Barbara would read me stories from her Stephen King book collection. She loved Stephen King and loved talking about them. Of course, I wanted to hear more, and remember her reading to me Stephen King's It when I was 7. She would hold me tight and make scary voices to me while occasionally asking me if I was scared. I think I told her no by my memory, but that was a lie. I was scared, and she probably knew it. Now, for years, I believed that I knew everything about the book, It, but it took a tragedy I will never forget for me to find out that my Aunt Barbara cared so much for me to keep stuff that was really dark away from me when it comes to the book. So, she purposely only told me certain parts of the book that I might enjoy and that might scare me just enough to be scared but a little brave. When the miniseries came out, I noticed that they changed a lot from the original book and focused more on the clown itself. Now, at that time, I was also watching a lot of a show called The Bozo Show on Chicago's WGN, and seeing Pennywise was the first step in creating a fear for me and clowns. But honestly, it had nothing to do with the scary clowns, but just normal clowns. And to this day, I don't know why I'm scared of just normal clowns. So, anyway, years later in 1993, my mother told me that we had to go back to Tennessee where my aunt lived, and it's because my Aunt Barbara, well, something was wrong. My Aunt Barbara went missing, and no one was able to find her. It's because, unfortunately, her husband had murdered her. My Aunt Barbara was murdered in cold-blooded, and I wasn't crying at all. Not at the funeral, not when I heard the news, and honestly, I didn't think I wanted to believe it at the time. I think that's the point of denial. I literally didn't understand why I wasn't crying for my favorite relative at the time. Then my family was going through her stuff, and they came across a big container of all her Stephen King books. Now, I wrote this down and scripted this, and the part I'm talking about right now, as I'm talking about this, is scripted, but it's going to have my own words to give more emotion so you guys can understand that moment and where I was in my sense. So, they felt that she would want me to have them, the Stephen King books. I remember dragging the plastic container to my room at the time, and I closed the door behind me. There were white walls everywhere, bed in the corner, my TV with my Sega Genesis and my Super Nintendo hooked up, and opened up the container, and just coincidentally, I could see one of the two books I loved inside, Cycle of the Werewolf and It. Head on top. She used to show me the really grotesque pictures of Cycle the Werewolf, and I never could tell my mom at the time, but I think she knew. Two of my favorite Stephen King books that she read to me. At that point, I fell to the ground and curled up. I had the door blocked behind me. I was just sobbing uncontrollably, curled up. I think it was at that point I realized she was really gone, and I finally had to face the fears of mine that I didn't want to face. So, when It Chapter 1 came to theaters, I wasn't willing to give it a chance. I felt like it would sully the memory of my aunt for them to ridicule and do anything bad when it came to that book, that movie, that miniseries. I felt Tim Curry, other people could not hold a candle to what my Aunt Barbara did when she made the scary voices, things of that nature. So, when it came to theaters, everyone told me I should give it a chance, and I would love it, and I need to see it for myself, and why. So I finally did. And I was happy to see what they did so brilliantly with this movie, and how one person can make Pennywise so terrifying, yet so appealing that it doesn't shame the legacy that Tim Curry created in the original Pennywise miniseries, or sully the name of what my aunt did with the character. Keep in mind, in the book, you didn't see, as much of the clown as you do in the movies. So please understand that if I am biased or critical in my review, it's because this story is dear to my heart and will always be. So, here, ladies and gentlemen, is my official review for It, Chapter 2. So first off, I'll start off by telling you that I will not spoil anything for you in this review. But to make a comparison that I think of this movie and the second movie, this movie and the first movie, and the best comparison I can say is being just like Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. You can't have one movie without the other. They basically complement each other, and you need both to be seen to truly cherish. Now, the casting in both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 is amazing. I wasn't shocked at all with the whole cast, and honestly, it wasn't even a surprise to see them do so well in this movie. Except one of my favorite comedians of all time, Bill Hader. He is a Saturday Night Live alumni, and I was shocked. Oh my god, Bill Hader did such an amazing job in this movie, and in my eyes is a standout performance. He was made to play Richie, and at the same time, I wasn't expecting to pull it off so well. The pacing seems different from the first movie, but Pennywise still loved. So much that when he's on screen, that you can't help but love and hate this character at the same time. Pennywise also is not biased, and is just a monster on screen, just a monster to anyone else without being biased to who they are or what their orientation may be. Of course, there is some differences from the book, but I can't embrace those differences because I can embrace some differences because they make sense. What it always stood for is facing your fear, and I believe it shows in this movie. Again, It Chapter 2 may not be It Chapter 1, but that's only if you look at it alone. Again, look at them both as one full movie, and you're left with something that you will never forget. I officially recommend you seeing It Chapter 2 if you've seen It Chapter 1 and you loved it. It's going to complement the first movie. It's going to be great. And no matter what changes have or happened, think about it and why in the long run it was a good idea. And with that, let's get into spoilers. So here's your spoiler warning for It Chapter 2. Leave now if you do not want to be spoiled. You have been warned. Again, this is the spoiler part of It Chapter 2. I have not explained anything that's happened in the movie directly, anything that's changed or anything. I'm going to go into spoiler reviews. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, I want to bring up something that that is said several times in the movie that's completely meta. I can go through different scenes that I loved or anything like that, but I feel like the major thing a lot of people are going to be questioning is the ending of this movie. So let's complete what I didn't realize until this scene was something that was completely meta, and it's the scene with the antique shop. Now, keep in mind the shopkeeper that you see in the antique shop is actually played by Stephen King, and of all things, he tells Billy he's the one that tells Billy that he'll sell him the bicycle for $300. Now, Bill realizes that the shopkeeper, which again is played by the original writer of It, Stephen King, has his book and asks if he wants him to sign it. So what did the shopkeeper, aka Stephen King, say? He says he didn't like the ending and doesn't want him to sign it. So why is this meta? Well, it's because both the miniseries and the theatrical movies of it have changed the ending. Because of the ending of the book is just so freaking weird. But that's because of an ongoing story in all of Stephen King's book, is that the kids in the books can control their psychic abilities called the Shining. It's a psychic power that only kids that have dealt with any kind of abuse can conjure up. So if you look at the abuse of what the Losers Club goes through, you'll understand how each of them gone through their own different abuse, especially with the talisman, and that is what brings up their psychic powers. So for Stephen King to say he didn't like the ending to the book, and in return the ending of this movie was changed, is extremely meta. So let me explain the ritual of Chud in the book and the ending, and why it's extremely meta. Now, of course, you've already seen Stephen King Chapter 2 if you're watching this part of the review. And if you are watching this part of the review, then understand that I'm going to explain the ritual of Chud from the book. So if you want to read the book, go read it. This is going to be crazy. If you don't want to read the book, then you're definitely going to understand why it's completely changed from the book. And if you saw my first review of It Chapter 1, you'll understand why I talk about the book's comparison. So let me get into it. So, the ritual of Chud, before it gets the name, is discovered in the novel by Ben Hanscom. At the library, he learns of an ancient way of fighting evil spirits or demons, which the losers believe Pennywise to be. The ritual involves staring into the monster's eye and then biting its tongue. Actually, it is to tell its jokes until it laughs, and then bite its tongue and hang on until you expel it. That's not even the weird part. This becomes more literal and cosmic during the climax of it, both with the losers as children and again when they are adults when they confront the final form. The final form the losers see is a giant spider, which is actually just what human minds can best perceive the evil emanating from its deadlights to be. And it is by staring into those deadlights that Bill initiates its both eras of the ritual Chud. So, in the book, in 1958, he stares into the spider's eyes, aka the deadlights, and is thus physically linked to Pennywise and transported across the cosmos. This is where it gets really weird, guys. His consciousness flies by a giant turtle named Mandarin. Now, if you paid attention to the school scene in the movie in Chapter 2, then you might have noticed the turtle on the teacher's desk. I think this is an Easter egg to Mandarin. Anyway, this space creature, who is something of a sibling to it, is actually responsible for the creation of our universe, which he accidentally barfed out while having a tummy ache. He is the one who tells Bill there is only Chud and your friends. So, on this tip, Bill physically hones in on it, like The Shining, and its psychic voice mocks him and laughs at his misfortune. Bill then uses his mind to bite into Pennywise's mind tongue and holds on. During this battle of wills, he stops it from carrying his consciousness beyond the realm of our universe and into the deadlights. Now keep in mind, Stephen King has always linked psychic behaviors and from other dimensions. This is where it connects to other movies like The Shining and so on. So, Bill uses a psychic act of shining or saying everything good that you've ever heard about, from the kindness of strangers to Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, all being real. Bill's goodness holds his tongue in a vice-like grip until it, aka Pennywise, surrenders in agony, thus returned to Earth. Then Bill sees the spider and is physically wounded and retreats in pain. Now, Bill repeats this again in 1985. The climax of both eras are presented back-to-back on the page. Keep in mind, they actually made the kids in 1980s, and then now for the adults. But in the book, the kids were from 1950s and then to 1980s. So they physically had to change those. That's why there's a lot of story changes when it comes to characters like their origins or where they work at, things of that nature, like the comedian. So, but anyway, so the climax of both eras are presented back to back on the page, but fails the ritual Chud by not being strong enough to bite its tongue. And because he is shaken to learn that the giant space turtle with galaxies in its glowing toenails has died, it apparently choked on another galaxy or due to a case of indigestion. It is thus up to Richie to stare into the deadlights, fly across the cosmos, and save Bill from the true source of it. The deadlights in the greater macroverse by biting into a cackling psychic Pennywise tongue. So afterwards, the spider is weakened in our world, but still strong enough to kill Eddie. Nonetheless, Bill and Richie use their psychic power of good, with a capital G, to beat the spider to death and pull out its heart, while Ben Hanscom squashes its arachnid offspring, which are just hatching from its abandoned egg sac. No joke, this is the ending in the book, and this is why it's been completely changed in both the miniseries and the movie. Now keep in mind that this has all happened in the book only alone. Can you imagine if they tried to sell this in the movie, or even tried to physically show any kind of form of this? So yes, changing the ending and having Stephen King go meta and comment on Bill's book having a bad ending is just so meta and fantastic. And that's it. That's what I wanted to get to when it came to the Easter eggs. I felt like this review was going to be long no matter what when I got into details, so I want to keep it. I want to stop it here. If you guys want me to make another Easter egg about both movies and the books and do a second comparison, I would definitely be happy to do that for you. And anyway, that's my official review for It Chapter 2. I want to thank you all for watching. Please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. Again, it'd be appreciated. That really helps this YouTuber out. And please consider becoming a member at the low price of $3.99. Link in the description below. And as always, I am Puttyman with GamerBotHeads. I thank you guys so much for watching this special review that I wanted to do. And do not forget, we're all about the high score. Peace out, and I'll talk to y'all later. And we all float down here.